So hello everyone, thank you for joining my session. I'm super excited to be here, right? And I'll start first by introducing myself. My name is Arome Ibrahim. I am from Nigeria. I'm currently based in Belgium. I am doing a master's degree in business administration, and I'm passionate about VR, right? So I fell in love with VR like 4 to 5 years back. And since then, the journey has been super amazing. Also, a bit of stress here and there, but it has been super fun. My background is around business strategy and product management, particular focus on XR, so XR related products. And I have a lot of experience in ecosystem development across Africa, community advocacy, and also supporting emerging startups. Currently, at the moment, I'm a business analyst at Vector, which is a Metaverse creator platform for VR and AR. So you can basically create no-code content on the web and have access to it across all your devices using Vector. And at the moment, we have close to 6 million downloads worldwide. I also have a nonprofit called Immersive Tech Africa. So basically, my goal is how can I give back to the community? How can I support youngsters on the continent that want to get started with technology? And how can we find a way to solve the issue of access to hardware and mentorship? Right. So that was one of the reasons why, together with an amazing team, we formed a nonprofit. And the goal is to increase access to XR technology through education, training, research, and also see how we can build an inclusive and engaging XR community on the continent. Some of our key programs are the XR Innovation Summit, which held earlier this year, and also a recently concluded project which is called the XR Innovation Launchpad. So in terms of Africa, our community is Pan-African, so we have representation across some key regions on the continent, from Kenya, Senegal, Morocco, Togo, and Uganda, and a chunk of our members are also from Nigeria, right? So we are trying as much as possible to have a more diverse and inclusive representation on emerging tech across Africa. So like I said earlier, some of our programs are the summits, the XR Innovation Launchpad, which is our training initiative. We are planning to also launch a Creators Lab, whereby we support upcoming developers with access to hardware, mentorship support, and also resources to learn, right? And also we are working on an innovation report, which hopes to showcase the growth of emerging tech on the continent, some of the challenges developers are facing, and how can we support them one way or the other, and also what or which industries are making the best moves with XR, and how can we also attract maybe foreign-based investments on the continent. So this is more or less like a highlight of what we did at our summit. If you have time, you could go to the xrinnovationsummit.com, so you can watch like the recorded versions of what we did, right? So the topic for the theme for this year was basically how we can drive innovation and social impact with XR. And we had a lot of speakers who came to share their experiences, also professionals who are building XR products on the continent. They came to demo their products, right? So this is more or less an opportunity for you to learn firsthand on what's going on with XR on the African continent. So in terms of our training initiative, we have the program called XR Innovation Launchpad. We recently held the third edition of our training initiative this year, whereby we had close to 60 plus people in attendance, and we made sure that everyone that attended the event was able to create an AR experience and also build content using Blender and Unity 3D. Right, so it's exciting when you see young kids coming that early to learn, right? And also a key criteria for us is how can we have more representation of women and girls in tech, right? So one of our key focus is to have and to support ladies in the technology with pairing them up with mentors that they are comfortable with, and also access to resources for them to get started. So going into the keynote for today. So basically, I'll be sharing with you guys on how Africa can leverage not just the metaverse, but also XR to transform some key sectors, some key industries, and also build the future of inclusion, the future of communication, and the future of technology on the continent. All right. So this is more or less the agenda for the discussion, and the first part is more or less what is the metaverse, so what is XR, right? And I know a chunk of the audience already know what it is, right? But for those that are still new to the space, the metaverse is more or less composed of different terminologies and mediums, like virtual reality, augmented reality, and for VR, it's more or less like a virtual computer-generated environment that interacts with your that you interact with using a headset. So you use a VR headset to engage with VR content. So for AR, it's more or less a digital representation on your physical environment, right? So there's no blocking per se. You can engage with the content using your mobile device, your iPad, and it's not that hardware intensive to build or to engage with. While for mixed reality, which is VR, AR, and MR, right, it's more or less an integration of virtual objects into real-world environments, right? So you have like a digital and a physical element within your space, and it fuses basically design, engineering, and also remote assistance in that process. And for the metaverse, it's more or less like a fusion of these three streams, right? And also faster internet, right? So for the metaverse, for me, I feel it's more or less like a digital twin of the earth, whereby you could do different activities and you are supported by different mediums, right? So when you create a content on platform A, you have access to it on platform B, right? Your avatars, your content, your experiences are all in a single space. And I feel it's another form for us to showcase our talents, our skills, and those inbuilt experiences we cannot physically share. So with the metaverse, you can create your own environment, invite your friends to come and see how amazing it is. Right? And also you could tell some stories that are not, how do I put it, that are hard to process, right? So maybe somebody that goes through a traumatic situation, they could be able to freely express themselves in a different environment that they will not be judged by anybody. So in terms of the development stages, it has been a very interesting journey, I must say, from the launch of the first AR glasses in 2012 down to 5G support and development, blowing everything up in 2019, the pandemic that happened earlier in 2020, 2021, and the innovations we are seeing with the Apple Vision Pro and also the expected Meta headset, right? So I feel the space is moving so fast, and we're seeing some big investments from top companies, right? So more or less, it's not, the metaverse is not dead per se, it's more or less being stable, right? That's my own perception. And we have the key players now really focusing on building the technology and also supporting businesses and developers to iterate the next generation of this platform. And I believe with time, we would have a phase whereby the metaverse is scaling, XR is growing, and we have an active user base whereby people can engage with this content, not just on their PCs, but also on mobile devices and VR headsets. So moving on to what is Africa doing, right? So basically the chunk of this session will be about how we are leveraging on emerging tech on the continent. And I would not say that we have the readily available infrastructure to support the tech, right? At the moment, according to the ITU, 28% of the African population currently have access to the internet, which has so far grown to 43.2%, right? Which is more or less below the average, the world average of 67.9%, right? So what this basically means is internet penetration on the continent is quite low, right? But it's getting better by the year. And as you can see, the cost of mobile internet in Africa, it's a bit expensive, and more or less an average 1 gig of data costs from $2 to maybe $20, depending on the country you're living at in Africa, right? So we need to do more. I believe our governments, they need to do more to democratize the space, increase access to internet possibilities for businesses and creators. And I believe with time we'd have more content, more businesses adopting it, and also more investments within the space. So looking at the internet economy, so according to research by Google and IFC, right, just recently released, Africa has an internet economy potential of close to $180 billion, right? And at the moment, we have the population basically, right, with 1.3 billion people, which is close to 16% of the global population, right? So the population is there, and we have like one of the fastest growing countries, right, in the world within Africa, which is quite surprising, right, to show you how amazing it is, how much tech talent we have here, right? And by 2025, the internet economy has the potential to contribute close to $180 billion into the African economy, right, which is quite huge. And that will be dependent on how we access digital technologies, how we are building with it, and what are the right policies that are being deployed by government agencies to support this digital transformation. So in terms of XR, what are we doing with XR, right? So a couple of my friends within the ecosystem, we came together to work on a report. It's called the Africa XR Report, and it's an ecosystem initiative which seeks to map the growth and development of XR on the continent, right? So if you go to the africaxrreport.com, you will have access to a detailed document that showcases what we're doing, some of the challenges we are facing, and how we have so far come to overcome those challenges, right? And in terms of mobile access, I must say we are doing quite well. Close to 477 million subscribers are currently available on the continent, which accounts to 45% of the population in Africa. And in terms of what we're doing with XR and the Metaverse, I have so far highlighted some key industries like education, healthcare and entertainment, arts and also tourism, which are so far deploying the technology and already leveraging on pre-existing infrastructure to make it happen. So I'll be sharing some examples and some demos with you guys shortly. So first off, what are some of the top companies doing? So at the moment we have, for example, MTN Group, which is based in South Africa and has several representation on the continent. They recently bought 144 plots of land in the Metaverse and are planning on launching a music and gaming experience for their customers, right? So MTN has like one of the largest user base of telecom subscribers on the continent. And I was also super proud to work on one of their projects, which is the MTN Yellowverse, right? It's more or less a metaverse platform whereby users can engage with the MTN customer service representative directly and also understand some of MTN products and services. So in terms of banking, we have Nedbank, which is based in South Africa. They are more or less like the first bank on the continent to have a presence in the metaverse, which is very, very exciting. And we also have Africa Rare, which is a 3D VR platform set in Ubuntu land. Their goal basically is to showcase creativity and fusing into it cryptocurrency and commerce. So basically people could have digital copies of some African artworks in an NFT space, right? So museums can now sell more digital copies of their collections, and people can learn about the African arts, culture, and heritage. So in terms of insights, these are some of the data we got from the report. At the moment, in terms of countries on the continent that are championing XR, we have Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal. We have also some very engaging countries like Uganda, Rwanda, they are very active in that space also, and also Ethiopia, right? So you could check them out. In terms of what are some of the developers doing, right? We have 63.5% of them who are working in VR, 53.5% are working in AR, and the rest are playing in the 360 VR space, right? So some of them are working with documentaries, supporting nonprofits to digitize their stories, which is quite good. And in terms of how do some of these developers learn, right? 54.1% say they learn on the job, right? So it's more hands-on for them. Some of them via online courses. A couple of them learn via universities, right? So at the moment, we have universities already dedicating courses purely for VR and AR, and also a chunk of them through high school. Right? This shows that the technology is largely been adopted, right, from the ground up. And in terms of industries, some of the top 5 organizations see possibilities in arts, entertainment, gaming, education, and also brand and advertising. So in terms of education, right, this is the space I love the most, right? For me, XR and the Metaverse is not just for gaming. It's more or less how we can transform the way our kids learn, right? For example, my brother, maybe who is given an assignment to draw the human skeleton, might not have the opportunity to see an actual human skeleton. But with the power of AR, we could have like a 3D representation of the skeleton in any environment in the classroom, and they can have a more detailed representation of what it is. And some of them can recall way better when they have like terminal examinations where they need to have a detailed drawing of the human skeleton. Right? So it's more or less transforming the way teachers teach. Right? We're not replacing teachers, we're supporting them to teach students better. And in Africa, XR is promising already, and we're already seeing schools, organizations, and institutes filling up the gap with emerging tech. And for me, its application is going to be tremendous. And we already have some key players and adopters already moving with it. For example, my friend Virtual E in Kenya, they partnered with a vet toolbox, right? So basically training students in mechanical engineering, those with vocational subjects to learn, right? So for some of them that need to see practical tools that they might not have access to, right? We can replicate them in 3D, right? And also in VR, and some of them can now learn, right? And we believe this can transform the way some of these kids would have hands-on skill sets to be able to perform very well in certain roles, right? So this project was implemented in Uganda by Enable, Wally Visual, and their goal is how they can support the Ugandan educational space and also address youth employment in the future. So these are some pictures from their showcase, kids having fun and also learning at the process, right? It's not just in Uganda, it's more or less like a stream of experiences across Africa. And for me, seeing these kids not just engaging with the VR headsets, but being able to create their own content will be a huge plus. And that's why for us, we are trying to see how we can reach out to the schools early to teach these kids 3D content development using basic softwares, right? For some of them that have computer labs, we could install the softwares for them to get started. Right? So before they are done with their education, they're already creators, they're already building for the Oculus Store, building for Stream, and different sort of platforms. So in terms of startups, we have a couple of them, right? And for example, we have Sisanda. They are based in South Africa, and they are basically trying to solve the problem of accessibility to labs, right? Science labs by students. And their goal is basically leveraging on augmented reality, right? So they are supporting kids, they are supporting schools and educational administrators to transform and redesign learning, right? So they have an app whereby you scan a QR code or an image of an organ in the human body, and it pop up in 3D, right? As you can see here. And why I love the app is they are leveraging on mobile devices because it's not everybody that can afford a VR headset on the continent, right? So for them, mobile accessibility is huge, right? And their reach is wide, right? Students and also teachers can learn and engage with their content online. Another startup I'm also very passionate about is StanLab 3D. They are also trying to address some of the challenges science education students face in Africa. Like for some rural communities or rural schools, they might not have access to equipped science lab. So for them, they are providing access to science-based curriculum, which are now converted into 3D and VR experiences, right? For them, it's purely VR to make it more immersive and engaging. And they are now partnering with these schools to more or less share access to some of these headsets, right? So if a school has a practical session for a certain period of time, you will have access to the headset and engage with the content. For those that have equipped labs, they would have access to the web-based 3D content for the students to engage with, right? So more or less, we're trying to gamify learning, gamify education, and make sure that some of our students learn way better using VR storytelling. So you might be thinking, what are the benefits, right? So according to research, virtual reality-based learning has been proven to increase student attention by 100% and also improve test results by 30%. So in terms of presentation and retention rate, right, it's amazing. And for me, what students see, right, they can recall faster, right? And also according to research, 50% of teachers want to incorporate VR and AR tech into their classroom, which is also backed by parents, because parents are now seeing the amazing benefits of this technology for their kids. In terms of AR, which is also quite accessible and engaging, we are seeing a huge demand by schools, right? So some schools would love to have their own custom-made AR experiences according to their curriculum. And also according to research, students who learn via materials that are built with AR scored 30 to 45% higher on tests than students who learn via natural or traditional based content. And we believe with AR, students can recall faster, basically, and they can engage with these subject matters, for example, biology, geography, in their own environment, right? They could take virtual field trips and still be in a certain location, and they don't basically need to fly across the world to engage with those field trips if they are limited by resources. So in terms of healthcare, according to the WHO, Africa faces a significant shortage of healthcare workers. And at the moment, it stands at 2.3 healthcare workers per 1,000 population, which is quite small. And for us, we believe emerging tech like XR and the Metaverse is also a platform to have more skilled medical professionals in the space, right? And basically, we're seeing how we can support medical teaching institutions to digitize some of their training processes, whereby students can now conduct practicals in VR, right? Perfect it, if possible, before actually being led into hospitals and nursing institutions. And also, in terms of XR medical simulation, a study was conducted by the University of Rwanda and King's College London, which showed that surgical trainees who use VR simulations, so VR, for example, achieve better results in simulated surgery, right? So what basically means is these students were put in a simulated surgery environment and they did very well in those simulations, and they can now do very well in a practical or realistic surgery operation, right? So we're more or less improving educational learning for these doctors and nurses. So in terms of kids, right? Kids in hospitals, those that have terminal conditions, we have one of the first VR headset that is made in Africa. It's made by, it's called Eden Snacker by Eden. They're based in South Africa. And what they are trying to do is to boost happiness by kids and children in hospitals using VR. And their goal for them is to improve pediatric healthcare across the continent. and also addressing unique challenges and providing children with a better healing experience in hospitals. Right? So they have an easy to use VR headset and a very nice and interactive touch control. So they're now partnering with a couple of hospitals in South Africa to deploy the solution, and we believe is in a matter of time, hospitals across Africa would have this, and hopefully export some of these headsets across Africa, across the world, sorry. So in terms of healthcare, once more, this is a project that is also close to my heart. It's by my good friend, Kunle Adewale. He's based in Lagos. He runs an initiative called Arts in Medicine, and their goal is how to leverage on technology to change and improve some medical procedures and medical experiences for users. And what he did was to figure out how we can energize and engage and more or less recall some unique experiences that some of our seniors have, for example, during their youth, right? So he partnered with close to 100 elderly homes in Lagos, Nigeria, and had like VR sessions whereby some of these seniors would have a VR headset and they can recall some of their moments, some old musical videos, old content, old pictures that were very available in their youth, right? So as you can see, some of them were excited, some of them were dancing, right? Because these are memories that they might not have access to at the moment, but with VR, they can be teleported into a virtual space, and it will be more or less some of them reliving some of their youth, right? So the goal for them basically is how to use VR to stimulate brain, energy, radiate joy, and also help create meaningful memories for these seniors within their community, right? So this is more or less VR for impact in action. So in terms of how can we also leverage this technology for digital transformation in arts, culture, and heritage, at the moment, Africa is blessed with tremendous culture, right? We have more than 500 different languages being spoken on the continent. And for me, I believe XR is an opportunity for us to digitize our past and also create virtual experiences for our kids yet unborn. And I have had the privilege of working with one of the leading museums in Nigeria, the MC Shalom Museum, and we're able to digitize close to 1,000 artworks on display in the museum. And during the pandemic, due to lack of access, people could not visit those museums. They were able to leverage on that digital experience and had close to 10,000 people that engage with the content online. So imagine 10,000 people walking into the museum, but not physically, virtually. And for me, I believe with 147 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Africa, the future is going to be incredible if we can just plug some of these locations into XR, right? Digitize them and have like digital copies in case of any ecological destructions to those spaces. But we'll also have a copy or a replica or an experience available for the future. So in terms of some of the projects that are currently going on the continent, this is called Google Map XR. It's by my very good friend in Ethiopia, Daniel, right, to be precise. And they are at the moment trying to digitize some Ethiopian heritage sites and creating like a virtual museum experience out of it. The one they recently completed in partnership with the British Council is called Futuristic Oriyama XR. And the goal for them is to have like photorealistic replicas, so leveraging on photogrammetry and 3D of some unique Ethiopian heritage. And the result is amazing, right? It's super clean, crystal clear. And the experience for me was transformational, right? You could engage with this object, you could pick it up, see how detailed it is, and learn about the story behind these artworks. And at the moment, they are partnering with Google Art and Culture to digitize close to 30 artifacts for the platform. And I believe having this across certain museums and cultural institutions on the continent would be a huge plus, right? Because we could now have digital replicas of our history and make it readily available for some of our kids, right, who might not know where they are from and how they got to where they are at the moment. And finally, in terms of what the future holds for metaverse innovation in Africa, for me, it's bright, it's amazing, it's going to be fun, right? And also, I feel one big aspect we need to feel is the aspect of upskilling, right? So scaling up some of these youngsters and youths that are really interested in the technology, but they don't know how to get started. And through our initiative, we're providing them access to mentors, right? Access to industry-leading mentors who have already carved a niche for themselves and are willing to give back to the ecosystem. And I believe if we can collectively build a space that is very inclusive, right? Like this space, for example, whereby creators, founders can come and share what they are doing with the technology. I believe in the long run, XR is going to go to regions of the world where we cannot even think of, right? Because they now know they have a voice and they can lend a voice to the metaverse innovation. And in terms of how can we now leverage this technology to democratize certain sectors like education, enhance healthcare, and also boost economic progress, right? That would be a very good plus if you can really fuse the technology efficiently into those sectors. And for me, going into XR 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, was not by chance. It's more or less by fate for me. For me, seeing how I can give back to the community has always been a plus, right? Because I believe the technology is not just fused or not just meant for a certain few, but for the entire space. And if we would have like strategic and very detailed support, investment, partnership, emerging tech, not just AR or VR or IoT, would have a very huge potential in reshaping the digital landscape on continents and also driving innovation, job creation, and hopefully creating a continent whereby experiences are now easy to make. Creators can now easily share their content and would have like a diverse landscape of innovators that are now not just consuming technology, but also building for the future of the tech. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you're able to learn about what we're doing with XR in Africa, how we're driving digital innovation and transformation with the metaverse. And if you'd love to connect, you could reach out to me via email at ibrahimarome@gmail.com. I'm also available on Twitter at Arome Ibrahim _. Or you could also send me a message on LinkedIn at Arome Ibrahim. And I would love to hear your feedback and also possible thoughts on how we can reshape XR in Africa and also across the world. Thank you so much for listening.